In every town and village in Britain, there are hidden gems of historic architecture.
Oh my word, that is breathtaking, that. That's huge!
Thankfully, some romantics take on the challenge of restoring these unique buildings and turning them into family homes.
I can't wait for the day where I refer to it as a home rather than a church.
I think I bought it with an element of love and desire and a tinge of madness.
Churches, barns and industrial buildings tell us many fascinating stories about our past.
Crikey, is any stately home or medieval castle?
It isn't for the faint-hearted.
You've got to fall in love first and then think about the consequences afterwards.
But the rewards can be a home like no other.
We're so proud of them. To see it and live it, it's just inspiring. Yeah, I can't talk about it.
As an architect, I relish the challenge that these unusual buildings give us when we're trying to create a place called home.
This week, a Georgian gem finally gets the restoration it deserves. 20 years after work first started.
It's a really small place, I suppose, but it's had a lot of big place headaches.
But when your dream project involves an ancient monument of national importance, you've got to be prepared for a fight.
Worst case scenario, it'll go to rack and ruin again. Bring it on.
On the far western tip of Wales is the county of Pembrokeshire. Perched high above a river on the southeast corner of Pembroke town and sitting on the remains of a medieval town wall is an 18th century Georgian ornamental summer house, known as a gazebo. This curious combination is owned by businessman Bruce Woodall from Oxfordshire, who bought it way back in 1979 for £30,000, with dreams of turning it into a family holiday home.
My wife has spotted it first driving past with her parents, and then when I used to come down with her, she always used to point it out and say, I'd love to be able to buy that one day. I just think the building's lovely. I just think it's unusual, it's quirky. I think there's an awful lot of people like me that love a challenge. The more the merrier of us that are around to take on these things and turn them into something beautiful again.
Bruce, how are you?
George,
Nice to meet you.
George, pleased to meet you.
What a beautiful day for it,
It's
isn't
a
it?
good day for it, yeah.
And you've bought this?
Yep, this is what I bought about 35 years ago.
Why did you buy it 35 years ago when you're just starting now?
Well, originally we bought it and it had an enforcement notice on to redo the roof, which was falling in.
Yeah.
And we got that done, but that's all the money we got at that time. And started restoring it, I guess, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
No, probably actually about 30 years ago. And the builder went bust. This August I retired from two of my companies and I thought I ought to do that project.
So why are you doing this? Why are you doing this project? I know you've owned it for years.
George, somebody's got to do it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do it.
For what purpose? What's it going to be?
Well, it's going to be something that people can say, God, I wonder who did that. And I'll be able to say I did.
Restoring this local landmark is clearly a lifetime's ambition for Bruce. The question is, how much of a mountain has he left himself to climb?
This is it.
Do you know, I would never have imagined you'd have this lovely secret garden on the other side of the wall.
Isn't it delightful?
And you can see where you started your original restoration work.
That was the original contract, yeah.
That is a historic ruin.
That is
from
historic.
30 odd
It
years
is,
ago.
that is my historic ruin, yes.
You come back to sort it all out.
Bruce's gazebo project has an overall footprint of 1,000 square feet and is made up of 3 distinct parts. The medieval wall and ruined tower are protected under the Ancient Monuments Act of 1882 and can't be used as living accommodation. Next is the 20-year-old half-built single-storey extension. And finally, the 18th century octagonal gazebo itself, which is Grade 2 listed.
So I'll just step up the brickwork. This is a perfect little step ladder. Look at that. Oh, it says.
There you are.
Was this connected back to a main house?
Yeah.
Somewhere then?
Well,
Part of the-
this particular garden is the third tier of a three-tiered garden. So the big house is up on the main street.
So this would have literally been a nice little garden pavilion.
And I assume that in the old days, this was where they sat and had their afternoon tea. You know, you can imagine it would be an absolute sun trap.
And now that, albeit small, is a very beautiful space, isn't it?
Isn't it fantastic?
That
Yeah.
is really lovely.
Yeah.
I love that ceiling.
It's crying out for a chandelier, isn't it?
It really is, actually. And you get those lovely little frame views out, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. On, on all four sides, so you can look north, south, east and west.
And so all this is going to be terrace?
All this is going to be a slate terrace, because obviously slate's a traditional material here in Wales. It's going to be walls obviously round here and a balustrade going along the front. And then one of my quirky ideas is I'm going to put an outdoor chess set here. What nicer to be sitting with your back to the wall, looking at this lovely garden and playing chess.
And how experienced are you in the building game?
I haven't done a project like this. I've done up a house, but not as a complicated contract like this, and certainly not having the passion that this is going to have. So this is a first of this sort of thing, but I'm not sure it wouldn't be my last. I might do another, you don't know.
Oh, another 35 years.
Yeah, that's right.
You never know.
Yeah.
By any standards, this restoration is a complex beast. And second time round, Bruce has wisely chosen a builder used to working with ancient monuments, conservation issues and listed buildings. Richard Tree and his men recently started work under the supervision of Bruce's original architect.
This is basically the living room,
Yes, and who's this fine young man?
and this is my architect, Cedric Mitchell.
Cedric,
George.
how are you?
How nice to meet
A
you.
real pleasure to meet you. It is brilliant that you two are together doing this, doesn't it? It's a fantastic. I mean, it is a reunion of you coming back to the building to restore it, but actually it's a reunion of two guys who
Two
know each other.
relics working together. Yeah.
Yeah,
I didn't want to use the word relics, but that's your
Probably
choice. of
fairly
word, not
appropriate.
mine.
That's it.
Bruce is sticking with Cedric's original plans, drawn up over 30 years ago, and it'll be interesting to see how they stand up after all this time.
So which one's the very lowest level?
This one.
This one?
Yeah.
In accordance with its ancient monument status, the lower level inside the old tower has been left as a store. The way into the property is through the garden door. A path then leads round to the main entrance of the new extension. The ground floor is made up of a living dining room, flanked on either side by ensuite bedrooms. The kitchen is housed on the lower floor of the gazebo, and a spiral staircase leads up to the centrepiece of the project, the drawing room, with French windows opening out on the roof terrace, enclosed by the built-up medieval wall.
And what are the planners like about building on the old wall? Because you're obviously lifting that up so it's safe. I'm assuming that's the scheduled monument as well.
Yes, it is.
And the planners are happy.
Oh, yeah.
Good.
Well, they were in 97.
Have you asked them since?
No. Don't need to. The consent has been implemented, so it's valid forever.
Yeah, I think it's a great scheme. And I wouldn't want to make any changes because it will just disrupt absolutely everything to do with the planning that you've dealt with so far. And I wouldn't even like to imagine what that's been like. It's lovely.
Back in 1996, this restoration was priced at £65,000. But Bruce got his fingers badly burnt when the builder went bust and left him in the lurch, after he'd paid out 2/3 of the money. 20 years on, and he's been quoted £200,000 to finish the job.
So how long is this project going to take you, do you think?
Approximately 28 weeks.
Approximately 28 weeks. That is
Yeah.
very specific. Is that
Yeah.
because you're signing on the dotted line? Fixed price contract?
I've signed on the dotted line, yeah.
And is it a
With
fixed contract
with
or
a
fixed time scale?
contract.
Everything?
Yeah, penalty clause, yeah.
Penalty clause as well.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So if he even goes like a week or two over that time scale, it's going to cost
Absolutely.
him money.
Absolutely. It's the only way to do it. That's what happened last time.
I see.
Learned my lesson.
Yeah, I bet you did.
Hopefully it'll be a good completion of the contract and we'll all remain friends.
Now this project may seem small and quirky, But in many ways, it doesn't get more complicated than this. At the lower levels, you've got a highly protected scheduled monument. At the upper levels, a Grade 2 listed structure and a steeply sloping site that makes the design and access for the build really difficult. But something tells me that having owned this building for over 30 years and failing to restore it when he was very young and inexperienced, this time Bruce won't be defeated.
In the town of Pembroke in West Wales, Bruce Woodall's gazebo restoration is up and running again 20 years after it first started. But builder Richard is far from happy.
This site does have its problems. Access into the site is through a normal household doorway, which means that the only way in is over the wall using a crane. Sorry, try and get him to the left-hand side of that pallet, okay?
It doesn't help that the wall in question is a scheduled ancient monument, so the utmost care must be taken to protect it.
Spot on. Ali, that's to pinch it up slowly.
Although Bruce's gazebo is half a mile away from Pembroke Castle, this medieval wall once ran unbroken all the way back to that mighty fortress. It's a tantalising connection with such a historic building. So on a rainy Welsh day, I'm heading up to the castle to find out more from archaeologist Professor Mark Horton.
Mark,
Hi, George.
how are you?
Hi, George.
So good to see you.
Well, isn't this the picture postcard medieval castle?
It's beautiful, isn't it? Stunning location, a really prominent building.
Yes, but it has an extraordinary story to tell.
Founded in 1093, Pembroke Castle started life as a simple motte bailey, an earth mound topped by a wooden stockade, one of many built by the Normans after the conquest. 100 years later, and they rebuilt the castle in stone.
Why were the Normans interested in Pembrokeshire? How did that come about?
Well, the Normans tried to push into Wales from the east. That's the Welsh Marches, Shropshire, Herefordshire and so on. They built hundreds and hundreds of motte and bailey castles, but they really couldn't get any further forward. And so they came round the coast, sort of outflanking manoeuvre here into West Wales.
It's a very important position, really, for what William was looking to do to protect England.
Well, I think that he was very worried about Wales as a place that could threaten the security of England, Norman England, but also, one generation later, this is the point where you go to Ireland. And so it becomes the key jumping off point for the Norman conquest of Ireland.
Pembroke Castle and its defences were gradually enlarged and expanded as it became the seat of a series of powerful Norman and later English earls. In 1457, it was the birthplace of Henry VII, the first Tudor king, father of Henry VIII and grandfather of Elizabeth I.
So, Mark, this building was actually quite a significant stronghold for, what, 400 years?
No, actually 600 years, because it last saw action during the English Civil War. It was initially parliamentarian and changed sides to the royalist. And Cromwell was so annoyed that he sent his army here in 1648 to besiege the castle and the town. For 7 weeks he bombarded the place and then finally managed to get in, and then he then ordered that the castle should be slighted.
Which basically means he just stripped it bare.
That's right.
So it could never be used against him at any point.
That's right. So that was the point at which the castle effectively ended its life as a defensive structure.
At the top of this tower you can see all the surrounding town. How does all of this amazing history link back to our tiny little gazebo and tower on the walls out there?
Well, the defence of Pembroke wasn't just the castle, but also the town wall that was attached. And there's actually a map here from the early 17th century, and you can see very much how it all works. So here is the castle here, and then this is the town walls all the way round, like this, and round here, and that's your gazebo just there.
Just there.
Just there. So I think your sets of walls were about 1300, the last expansion. So your little tower forms part of this great tapestry of English and Welsh history.
Back on site, there's been a development. Cadw, the Welsh Government agency responsible for all scheduled ancient monuments, have got wind of the fact that this project is up and running again. And understandably, they want to check that everything is as it should be.
There are a number of issues that we have to try and sort out and get to the bottom of.
Cadw are insisting that all works be put on hold. Which is bad news for Richard, who's on a fixed contract with financial penalties if the build overruns.
By this time we were hoping to have had 6 to 8 men on site, building the walls up so we can get the top section weathered and waterproofed. Without that roof being watertight, I can't go any further than the work that we've done now, so we may have to pull off site.
This is a devastating blow to a restoration that has only just got going again after 20 years. I want to hear how Bruce is planning to proceed.
Good morning, gents. So nice to see you. How are you? Are you well? Good to see you. How are you? I hear you've got a bit of an issue with the planners. Is that right?
Yeah, small issue with Cadw.
What we've been told is that the gazebo is apparently a scheduled ancient monument as well as the tower. And because scheduled ancient monument consent takes priority over listed consent, they're saying that we haven't got consent to do any of this work.
But you have got consent. You just got it a long time ago.
Well, that's right.
The thing with planning is once you've got planning in place, as long as you've significantly started work, then you've implemented the planning, and it's valid forever, which you guys absolutely started work years ago and built all that extension on there.
75% finished.
So why have they had such a change of heart?
Well, they said we've got to regularise the paperwork. I mean, we've been asked to apply for scheduled ancient monument consent, and they will look at it as if it were happening today. Now, if they decide that that's not what should be happening to a scheduled ancient monument, I don't see that they had any choice except to say, we're not going to approve it and you'll have to take it down.
Have they asked you to stop work?
They have, yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
We're
they
working
have.
at risk.
You're working at
We're
risk.
working
now.
at risk, yes.
How do you feel about possibly being sued by Cadw?
Bring it on. It's not the castle, for God's sake, you know. So, and what we're doing is actually giving it another, hopefully, 500 years of life.
But you're not going to stop.
Onwards and upwards.
You're
Oh,
not stopping.
no, we can't. I mean, well, I want to do it before I die.
Well, hopefully you're not spending those last years in prison.
Well, at least I get colour television and 3 hot meals.
Cadw have agreed that they can continue with the essential repairs to the medieval wall, but they're no longer allowed to raise it to enclose the roof terrace. Instead, Bruce's team will build a metal rail. There's another 3 months to wait before the fate of the whole project is known, but true to his word, Bruce is carrying on regardless.
So it all seems to be moving on apace. You've got first fix electrics in. It's fine on. And windows.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Once those windows are in and doors are in and your window watertight, you're in a great position, aren't you?
Yeah.
And what about the main gazebo tower itself? How's this looking? This is cracking on. All insulated in there as well. That's looking good.
Taking shape.
Yeah, it's going well. Really, really well.
Yeah.
When the gazebo was given its Grade 2 listing back in the 1970s, every element of its exterior became protected, including the 1960s pebble dashing. The original Georgian windows were repaired during Bruce's first aborted restoration attempt, but the frames have rotted and need to be replaced.
Richard, I understand you want me to put this window in today.
Yeah, I could do with a strong hand this morning to try and get this in.
I thought what's really lovely about what you've done with these windows is you've reused sashes, haven't you?
Yeah, we've reused all the original sashes that were in the building when we got here to try and keep with the heritage and the listing and make everybody happy.
So should we go for it? Put
Yeah,
them in.
let's go.
Hang on a second, I couldn't get my hand around the frame.
All right.
Oh, this is fun. That's a quality window, that is.
There's a good bit of weight in there now.
Will she fit? I'm hoping you measured properly.
Just like she grew there.
I'll tell you what, the weights and polish are immaculate. Look at that. Isn't it as smooth as anything? It's nice that it's the old window as well. I love this.
The rules governing the treatment of ancient monuments have only been in place for a little over 100 years. Before then, there was nothing to stop anyone from tampering with what we now regard as our shared architectural heritage. But what inspired the Georgian building of our gazebo to create this unique structure? To find out, I've come to Tintern Abbey in Monmouthshire, one of the country's most celebrated ruins, thanks to a late 18th century group of artists and poets known collectively as the Picturesque movement. Professor Sarah Prescott is an expert on the period.
So just tell me how the kind of romantic picturesque movement even came about.
Well, the picturesque movement is best understood really as a complete revolution in taste. It was a move away from thinking about landscape and architecture as very formal to an appreciation of irregularity, of ruins.
We actively created ruins, didn't we, in gardens and landscapes?
Yes, I think there's over 30 examples of mock ruins in Britain in the 18th century where if you weren't lucky enough to have a medieval bastion at the end of your garden, you actually constructed your own ruins to make your garden, your grounds much more picturesque and therefore more fashionable, more cultured and part of the broader world.
And so our building, which is literally connected to the old medieval wall, was all part of that picturesque movement.
Yes, it epitomised it, I think, and that's what's so wonderful about it.
The end of the 18th century saw a shift in attitudes towards homegrown ruins like Tintern Abbey, which had previously been overlooked in favour of the classical sites of Greece and Italy. But with war in Europe making travel on the continent difficult and dangerous, leading lights of the picturesque movements like William Wordsworth and J.W. Turner sought inspiration closer to home.
These are two of Turner's paintings. I think the first thing you notice is the foliage, this kind of ivy-clad ruin.
In terms they wanted to ruin the building even more than it actually was, to make it even more romantic. Is that right?
Absolutely. It's about improving the landscape so it looks well in the picture and conforms to picturesque principles.
And our humble little gazebo was made to look more ruinous and romantic than it actually was by sitting on the medieval wall.
That's right. They didn't have to construct their mock ruin in order to make their fashionable tea-drinking place to invite their friends, so lucky them.
Back in Pembroke, with owner Bruce determined to press ahead with work, the builders are started on the task of fitting a new skylight in the extension. This skylight is the only change that Bruce has made to the plans drawn up by architect Cedric 30 years ago, but it's not proven to be as easy as it sounds.
The engineer felt that the roof had not been designed to have a hole in it, and particularly with a hole of this size, it's 1 metre by 2 metres, which is quite large. He was concerned about the reinforcement within the concrete and whether that was going to be capable of spreading the load over the rest of the roof. But he's now worked it out and it will be okay.
Over the next few days, the weather turns. But with penalty clauses hanging over builder Richard's head, he's desperate to keep the build going.
We've had designed the beam now, which is going to go round the inside of the hole. Conditions aren't ideal. It's pouring with rain, but we've only got the welders for today.
The new skylight has been specially made and will add an extra £3,000 to the overall £200,000 budget. But with the Scheduled Monuments Act hanging over Bruce's head, he may be forced to abandon his cherished restoration project again, and this time for good.
We'll have more in by midnight.
It's March 2015, and despite the Welsh conservation body Cadw demanding all work stop on site, Bruce Woodall is defiantly going ahead with the restoration of his 18th century gazebo. Today is a big day. The specially reinforced glass skylight has arrived, weighing in at an impressive 500 kilograms.
Everybody happy? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
At last, Richard the Builder will have a structure that's safe from the elements.
After 3. 1, 2, 3. Are you right, Nick? Yeah, fine, yeah.
Which is just as well, because the builders have already started plasterboarding inside, both in the new extension and in the ground floor of the octagonal gazebo, which will become Bruce's kitchen. While work continues, I'm going to try and discover the identity of the original builder. It seems that both the gazebo and the main house were built in the early 1790s by Dudley Ackland, an officer in a local regiment called the Pembroke Yeomanry. In 1797, the yeomen were involved in a little-known event in our nation's history, referred to as the Last Invasion of Britain, which took place 30 miles north of Pembroke on the rugged coastline above Fishguard. I've come here to meet Major John Ingledew, an army reservist who served in the yeomanry until it was disbanded in 1993.
So John, who were the Pembroke Yeomanry?
Well, in 1793, Britain was at war with France, and so the following year, 94, it was decreed that each county would form a gentleman's company, if you like, of yeomanry. A lot of the regular troops the British Army owned were overseas. There's very few regular troops stationed in Britain at this time, and there's not a great feeling for getting people into the army, conscription. So volunteers was the thing to do.
And what was their specific role? I mean, what were they looking out for generally? Because to me this sounds like a very, very quiet part of the world.
There was always a worry that the French were going to invade. They actually landed here in February 1797 to raise an insurrection, embarrass the British government and disrupt local commerce.
The French invasion force consisted of 1,400 men who landed near Fishguard and quickly spread out to local farms, hoping to persuade the Welsh to join them and rise up against their English oppressors. The rebellion never happened. Instead, they were met by a much smaller detachment of Pembroke yeomen who'd been mobilised to confront the enemy.
So tell me about Ackland. What was his role against the French?
He had a great role. The evening of the second night, the French decided to surrender, but it was on their terms, and they basically wanted the British to pay for them to go back to France. Dudley Ackland basically said, we've got the stronger figures, and our strength is growing every day. So it's absolute surrender or nothing.
So in some ways, Ackland and everyone else, they were kind of calling their bluff a little bit, because you had 1,400 guys coming in.
Yeah.
They didn't have anywhere that near number.
It was a bluff. I think he was a man of immense courage, because you've got all this going on with the French, and with a small escort, he basically, marches through the French positions to deliver this ultimatum, you surrender. And he waited there until the answer was given, and then he then escorted the senior French officers down to Haverfordwest.
Anybody could have turned on him at any point, couldn't they?
Absolutely.
Very brave fella. I can just imagine him sitting in our little gazebo with a little cup of tea at the end of the day, thinking, I'll just sort out the French.
In Pembroke, spring has arrived. According to Bruce's original schedule, work should have been completed by now, but because of the uncertainty that's still hanging over the project, it means it's delayed.
Bruce, good morning, mate.
George,
how are you?
Good to see you.
Really, really good to see you.
Yeah.
It's cracking on, isn't it?
Yeah, it's moved along a lot. And,
It really is. Windows in.
Yeah, windows are in.
Still a scramble to get up there.
It's still scrambled. Still a young chap like you. Won't be a problem for you.
Roof lights in. Now this is looking very smart.
Looking
Look at
good,
that.
isn't it? Yeah, yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, that'll be fun in the winter, won't it, when the light's shining up? And,
It'd be fantastic, actually.
Yeah.
Is this a bit of kind of integrated bench seating or something that you've done? What's this?
Yeah, we've incorporated we're going to put a slate on it.
Yeah. So you can sit here.
Yeah.
Make sure the bricks are dry before I sit down.
Yeah.
Sit there.
This
Chessboard.
This will be it. The chessboard will be there. Table for the drinks will be there.
Of course.
Yeah.
And what's the score with Cadu, our friends these days, and your permissions?
They made the right decision.
Did they?
Yes.
Did they really?
Yeah. Yeah, they've allowed us to continue, and I mean, to be frank, everything was there and was all done correctly 20 years ago, so everything is now legal.
And it was a big risk.
It
really
was,
a big
yeah, of
risk.
course it was, but I don't think there'll be a judge in England with a brain in his head that would have said that I was wrong. So I didn't lose any sleep, let's put it that way.
I can't imagine you losing any sleep about anything.
No,
to be
I
honest,
didn't
Bruce.
lose any sleep at all.
Anything
no.
at
No.
all?
No. I only lose sleep if I think I've run out of wine.
Inside, the plasterers have started work in the new extension. And I'm down to see how the gazebo itself is shaping up.
It'd be nice when the spiral's in. You're very smart. This is a great room. It's always good sound when the plaster's going on the walls.
We were just saying, not going to be much room for much furniture though.
No. What were you going to put in here?
Tea and cucumber sandwiches.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all right. You can have that lovely little table there. Get your little seats off to the side. You don't want to clutter it with too much.
No, that's the whole point. It actually wants to be minimalist. Yeah.
And it is a place to kind of get away from everything else, really, when you think about it. You know, there's so much accommodation downstairs.
Yeah.
You come up here, bit of peace and quiet with a book.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sit in the window seat, look out the window.
Yeah.
Watch the world go by.
Everyone is relieved that the planning situation has finally been resolved. Now the stage is set for the gazebo to be transformed into the elegant retreat that Bruce has been dreaming about for the past 35 years. Guessing that interior design is not Bruce's forte, I've brought him to Monmouthshire in search of some inspiration.
Bruce, I've got a little surprise in store for you.
Where's that? Oh, my word.
Look at that.
Clither Castle is a Gothic folly built in 1790, around the same time as the gazebo, and is now owned by the Landmark Trust. I hope it's going to provide Bruce with a masterclass in how to make his Georgian gem a home.
Welcome to my humble abode, Bruce.
Looks very grand.
I wish. Come on in.
Thank you.
It's got a very calm, peaceful feel to it.
What a lovely room.
Have you got any idea what you're going to do with kind of paint colours and things like that?
That's a good question.
I'll take that as a no.
I haven't got a clue. I'm not good at colours, I've got to be quite honest. And as an example, just looking at this room, you see, that isn't a colour I would have necessarily thought of.
Right.
But it works well.
It's quite a clever choice of colour, actually.
Yeah.
And because it's light, it feels the whole space is slightly lighter as well. If this was a really deep green or a really deep blue, it would feel a little bit more enclosed.
It's good job you showed me this, because I was going to do it as a dark blue.
Were you?
Well, because that's what pictures hanging on a dark blue wall look fabulous.
But it's about how you do that, particularly, I think, in the tower itself, where you've got that room on top with the dome. Because if you then take the dark blue up to be over your dome ceiling...
Yeah. No, I wasn't going to do that. I was going to have that white, but yeah.
Right. So if you're going to have that white, then the walls would look one colour, the dome looks like something else.
What you're suggesting, I do the dome in the same colour as the walls.
If it's a lighter colour.
That's your advice.
And not your dark blue. That's my advice.
Georgian interiors were simple and uncluttered, so the architectural details shone through. Like Bruce's gazebo project, the kitchen here is in the tower. It's been simply designed to fit the unusually shaped space.
Look at this, a little engraving. That's a classic picturesque drawing of a building in the landscape.
Isn't it? Yeah.
To give a false image of what this was really about.
Yeah. Do you think I should have one done with zero?
I think you should. With you in the foreground as a knight in shining armour.
Bruce's house will have 2 bedrooms, both with ensuite bathrooms. And there's plenty to learn from here about creating elegant, functional spaces.
And then up to the bedroom on the first floor.
Isn't that fabulous?
And obviously at this level you've got gorgeous views. Really stunning views.
Yeah.
They're lovely.
I got lovely windows, but my view is not going to be that splendid. So it's more about the inside space than the outside.
Yeah. But you've got to get the colours right.
Absolutely. It makes it all the more important, that. And so my biggest fear is actually I get the restoration done well, and then I paint it, and everybody goes, oh, what's he done?
Back at the gazebo, and the builders have entered the final stages of its restoration. And the Welsh slate for the terrace is being laid.
Do you have two sets of chess pieces? Yeah.
Bruce has taken charge of creating the outdoor chessboard. And after 20 years in storage, the stone pilasters that will form the balustrade have arrived on site. In the gazebo, the wooden floor has been installed, ready for the kitchen to be fitted.
It's amazing to think that after all these years, Bruce is finally poised to make his dream come true. He's overcome so many problems. It's honestly been a marathon effort, and I hope it's worth the wait.
In the Welsh town of Pembroke, this 18th century gazebo was bought 35 years ago by Bruce Woodall. But after one failed restoration attempt, it sank back into decay for decades. I've come back to see if Bruce has finally realised his restoration dream.
Bruce, George, so good to see you. Good to see you. So good to see you. You've done it! Honestly, it's done.
Really fantastic. After all the years.
No, I'm really pleased, and it's just lovely to see the building come back to life.
Do you know what? So many times that I've come, the scaffolding's been up and it's been covered in all sorts of stuff. But it's the first time that I've seen it where you really feel like it's a kind of fortified building with the gazebo on top.
And the sign that we put up, and it really looks, it looks magnificent, doesn't it?
The East Tower.
The East Tower. Gold-leafed, just as it should be.
When I first came here a year ago, the place was an abandoned building site that had lain untouched for 20 years, waiting for Bruce to have the dogged determination to finally complete it.
Here we are, garden done. Look,
looks wonderful.
Hey,
What a difference.
There's no plants yet, but I'll be planting plants. But
and actually with all of this it'll all soften more, won't
But
it?
look at that, was the old greenhouse.
Oh, yes.
And that'll make a fabulous barbecue. Come on in and have a look inside.
I'm going to lead the way. Home sweet home.
The shell of the extension that resembled a wartime concrete bunker has now been transformed into a light-filled living area.
Do you know what? It just feels nice and kind of calm, doesn't it? Once you've crossed through the wall and come into your garden and then through that door, it's so quiet, isn't it? I think the floor is very smart.
Isn't it?
This has cost you a few pennies.
Yeah, that came from Italy. And it's actually interesting when you have a long time scale, you have a lot of opportunity to think about how do you want to do it and how you're going to, how you're going to sort of fit it all together.
Bruce always intended this house to be a holiday home for him and his family. There's a master bedroom with a marble-clad ensuite bathroom and views out onto the enclosed garden. On the other side of the living room, concealed behind the elegant Georgian-style panelling, is a second double bedroom.
Bedroom's behind this one, isn't it?
That one there, yeah.
Love the door. So there's the little guest room. It's really lovely.
Yeah.
It's actually been really nicely planned, honestly, because you've got this room that can go straight outside. You've got lots of integrated storage back here.
Yeah. And the thing I like about it is actually you just get out of bed, open the door, and you're into the bathroom. And
You've got a bathroom behind
there's
here?
a bathroom behind it. If you slide that door back.
Another hidden door?
Yeah.
Oh, excellent.
It reveals then.
Oh, really good. I completely forgot that you were putting this in here, right? Because it's tucked right at the very back.
I put some lights down the bottom there, so at night, if you turn that
The
one
main
off,
light off. Oh,
that
it's a
light,
night light.
it just gives you a night light, so you know where you're going.
Even in its derelict state, you couldn't fail to spot the potential of the gazebo tower, the ground floor of which has now been transformed into a stylish kitchen.
You've done a really good job. I love the way that you've planned the kitchen, so it's kind of working with the angles. Even just going for the little rounded corners on the kitchen unit as well.
Yeah.
Just softens it a
Just
little bit.
just
in the
softens
space,
it, that's
doesn't
right. Yeah. Not bad for an amateur, is it?
You've gone really modern. Super modern with your staircase.
Yeah, but if you've got something old, you can't make a staircase to pretend to be old. So I just felt I had to go totally the opposite way, and I think it looks good.
It's great. But the room that I'm very excited about seeing.
You want to come upstairs and have a look?
Yeah, let's do it.
Come on.
When Bruce first spotted the tower all those years ago, it was the first floor with its stunning Georgian windows that fired his imagination.
Now, this is the bit I've been looking forward to more. This room is what it's all about.
Bruce has furnished his elegant drawing room with period pieces inherited from his Welsh mother.
Oh, it's great, isn't it?
Look at this. But look at that. Eh?
Yeah, you've gone for it with the chandelier. You always said you wanted a chandelier.
Yeah. But doesn't that look fabulous? It just makes the room.
Sensibly steering clear of dark blue walls, Bruce has opted instead for a classical pale grey, and he's used the same colour on the woodwork.
Do you win for the right colour? Your interior design skills have moved up another 25 notches. It's beautiful.
This is the quiet room. Grandchildren downstairs, not upstairs.
Grandad up here.
Grandad up here, George.
Oh, yes, with that, yeah. See, I was thinking this would be a nice tea drinking space, but no.
Cold tea.
Out on the roof terrace, the new skylight is perfectly flush with the slate tiles.
What a fantastic space.
Yeah.
And you've
And
got
then
the
look at
chess
this.
set. Look,
How
you've
about
done
that?
it.
Eh?
You have got
Yeah.
your chess set. This
Yeah.
is beautiful.
Yeah, yeah.
You had that specially made.
Yep, and he also made a set of drafts. And I just think it will be a lot of fun up here.
Bruce originally budgeted £200,000 for this restoration, with penalty clauses in place if work took longer than 7 months. In the end, it took 10 months, but nobody lost out because the delays were simply due to the planning process. The final cost was £230,000, which included additional exterior work and landscaping.
There they are. The terrible twos. This is trouble. This is trouble. How are you? So good to see you. You all right? Great. Nice to see you.
Yeah, all right, mate.
Well, you've done it.
We've done it.
You've
Finally,
done it.
we've got it. I still haven't had a game of chess yet.
No,
We're going to have a game later. Yeah.
I wouldn't play him because he'll play you for money.
Yeah.
Honestly. Yeah. But what's it like seeing it come to fruition after such a long time?
It's wonderful. Because when we abandoned it 20 years ago, I thought that was it. I thought we'd never see it come to fruition. But now we have, and it's lovely.
I tell you what I like is when you're talking to people passing back and forth, taking the kids to school, because they've seen it for so long in such a dilapidated state, and they always say, oh, it's lovely to see it, can we come in and have a look?
This is a building that means so much to the area and the people that live here. I mean, it's such a unique part of the history of the area as well. Got a glass, sir?
After all the hard work, it's time to christen the room.
Do you know what? Normally I'm not that apprehensive about opening a bottle, but I don't want to hit that chandelier. Cheers.
Cheers. Well done, all. Very nice.
Tiny little gifts. You're going to like this.
What have you got here?
Livingly restored by Bruce Waddle.
Oh, that's nice.
Remember those days?
Yeah.
The state of those windows. And the first mention of the construction of the gazebo suggests that it was the summer house of a man called Dudley Ackland.
Right.
Yeah.
Now,
That name ring a bell?
Yeah.
so you'd heard of Ackland?
Oh, yeah. Indeed.
Cedric goes back a long time.
I've got another gift for you.
You got me a teapot. Look at
I've
that.
got you a,
Look at
I've
that.
got you a yeomanry
Isn't that
fish
good?
guard
Magnificent.
teapot.
Thank you very much indeed. Look at that.
That would be perfect.
I shall be drinking my cold tea out of that. That's really kind.
It's been years in the making, but this historic tower has been beautifully restored, and that's something worth celebrating.
Although this is a relatively small building, it's actually been an epic restoration project. Its journey first began a long time ago. 35 years ago, in fact, when Bruce first bought the building. And true to form, the tower has put up one heck of a fight. It's battled against all the complexities of planning and the fact that it sits on a scheduled ancient monument. It's been far from easy. And Bruce, well, he's the ultimate restoration warrior, isn't he? He just refused to surrender. He's restored this building back to its original use and created a retreat, a place to entertain, relax, and enjoy.
To find out more about the build featured in this programme, or if you have a project for the next series, go to channel4.com/restorationman. Next time, the ambitious transformation of not one, but 2 church buildings.
That's huge!
And a man with the passion to see the job through, whatever the cost.
I think you've got to fall in love first and then think about the consequences afterwards. More for next Thursday from 9 o'clock. She's back at Juliana Margulies. Not exactly the doting dinner on your table every night. Good wife. Next tonight, new show on Channel 4. Single mothers go dating, and here's the catch. Their kids decide on who's the lucky fella. Date my mum. Brave.